Does Rachel Amber have powers? So it's Leo season, which means it's the perfect time to talk about our favorite cusper. Okay, I know it's not Leo season, but I had a lot of stuff going on last month, so I couldn't really put it out. But it's only like a couple of days after, so we're still gonna call it Leo season. Now, I know some of you might be sitting there saying, wait, isn't Rachel Amber a Cancer? And I need you guys to listen to me very carefully. She is a Leo. Meow. But seriously, her zodiac actually matters a lot more than you'd think for this video. And I know a decent amount about astrology, but that's like typical lesbian stuff. But now that you've seen my credentials, now you guys know I love a good Life is Strange theory, and I've covered this in a short video, but today we're doing the full deep dive, so buckle up. Hey guys, I'm Captain Loren, and I've been a Life is Strange fan since 2015. Or at least that's when my hyperfixation started. I tend to be an obsessive overthinker when it comes to lore, hidden details, and characters in games, among other things in my life. But in this series, we're diving deep into the world of Life is Strange. But specifically with this video, we're gonna dive a little deeper in one of the most complex characters in the entire franchise, Rachel Amber. Now, the devs have never put anything in these games by accident. They are very meticulous storytellers. Don't Nod and Deck 9 are not randomly placing special effects or certain dialogue just for fun. Every single thing in these games is intentional. And when you start looking at a character like Rachel Amber through that lens, the evidence that she does have powers is not so subtle. It's actually everywhere. You just have to pay attention to the details that they show you. Okay, so let's get this going with evidence number 1, the zodiac sign, and also a strong case for why she's a Leo. So let's start off with her zodiac sign, because I was serious when I said that that matters.
Oh man, are you serial?
So I've seen this question bouncing around the community even today when Before the Storm dropped, and some people are still undecided. Because Rachel Amber was born on July 22nd, 1994. And July 22nd is right on the cusp of Cancer and Leo. Specifically, what astrologers call the cusp of oscillation. That's the name for people born between July 19th and July 25th. And in Before the Storm, if you look around Rachel's room, you can actually find the cusp of oscillation chart sitting right there on her dresser. Deck 9 put it in her room. They wanted you to find it, and they wanted you to ask the question. Now, I'm gonna put my astrology knowledge to work here, because the thing with cuspers is that they usually identify more heavily with one sign than the other. The birthday technically is on the line, but your actual sign depends on the exact time you were born. Now, there are no notes in the game that suggest that she was born at 7 p.m. or later in California, which would definitively put her in Leo territory. But the birth time argument doesn't just come to the science of when you were born. For cuspers, it comes down to the traits that make up your personality. Now, you could say, oh, but Rachel could be a Cancer because she's possessive, moody, and has a deep emotional intensity about her, which all makes sense because Cancers are water signs. But I'm gonna need you to go ahead and name one water-related thing that happens around Rachel Amber and Before the Storm. It's okay. I'll wait. Yeah, I got nothing either. We do know that there's ample fire-related things that are tied to Rachel in Before the Storm. But what sign comes after Cancer? The charismatic fire sign that is Leo.
Meow.
And they love being in the spotlight. They're also dramatic, magnetic, and I say this with love, but a little bit jealous when they're not the center of everything. And Rachel Amber is exactly that. She walks into every room and owns it. She's convinced an entire town she was perfect. She got cast as the lead in the school play. She had Frank, Chloe, and Jefferson all wrapped around her finger at the same time. Each one of them thinking that they were the only one. That's not Cancer energy, that's Leo energy. That's the fire. Now yes, Chloe does call Rachel her lion crab, which does track for her zodiac, but a lot of her traits align with Leo instead of Cancer. Even being brave is another associated trait with lions that are Leos. And Rachel has shown countless times that she is willing to be brave and stand up for those who she cares about. Now, if you guys have ever known or even dated a Cancer or a Leo in your life, you would know that Rachel has a lot of similarities towards Leos versus Cancers. Especially with the fire and Before the Storm and the fiery sign that is Leo, I don't think any of this is coincidental because Rachel Amber is a force of nature. Moving on to evidence number 2, William's dreams. Now, I want to talk about Chloe's dreams with William because they're definitely connected to Rachel, and the pieces of evidence in them, I don't think people look at the deeper details of them because it's honestly one of the most deliberate things that they put in the entire game. In episode 1 of Before the Storm, after Chloe and Rachel have a fight, and then I end up crying because I thought I messed everything up between them. Relatable, am I right? Anyway, remember how I've said before that everything that the devs put in these games is deliberate? Well, for example, William says to Chloe, a lover's quarrel, you might say? She nearly took your head off, as the mannequin head is sitting right next to her in the car. And it's the same mannequin head that she hit with the bat in the junkyard. Right after that, he says to her, sometimes people need you, though, even if they don't admit it. Which is also on brand for her Leo traits, because Leos are prideful with a tough exterior, but they need someone to share their love with. They
Even
just
when they
fear
don't
it.
admit it.
And when they stop, Rachel looks at Chloe and puts her hand on the car window, as if she's reaching out to Chloe for help, but is too scared to say it. And then she catches fire. Not only foreshadowing what happens after that, but almost proving to us that there is a fire that burns within Rachel. Not just a Leo fire, but a supernatural fire that's waiting to erupt. Then in episode 2, Chloe has a dream with William once again, and Chloe says, what does fire blind with? To which William replies, beauty. But yet there's a greater beauty yet to come. Fire is jealous, Chloe. It wants all the beauty for itself. That's why you need to be careful. And Chloe says, careful of what? And he says, of getting burned. Now I think this conversation has a lot more symbolism than it lets on, because the game just shows Arcadia Bay burning, so they want you to take it in a literal sense. But I think William is once again referring to Rachel, almost as if it's foreshadowing the greater danger of getting closer to Rachel and getting burned by her, because we all know that Rachel was a star. She burned bright and fast, but she also loved stars, as you can see in her room. But we also have to take into account that this is Chloe's subconscious talking, which makes me wonder how much of her thought that she was going to get burned by Rachel in the end. Because you know how it is, being blinded by love, especially your first, ignoring all the red flags, and you can't stop once you're falling. And he says all this right as they're driving up next to Rachel. Could even say it's also symbolism to the conversation about the stars in her room, because Rachel says stars are beautiful, and remind her that there's so much beauty out there, but we never get to see it because we're too blinded of what's in front of us. Almost as if people are blinded by Rachel, but they don't see her for her true self. Now, it's no secret that everyone was just mystified by Rachel, or blinded, as I said. I mean, how can you not be? She's a very charismatic person that pulls you in with just her energy alone. Even if you don't like Rachel, you can't help but want to know more about her. But what's so interesting about that energy of her pulling you in is that nobody really knows who she is at her core, except for maybe Chloe. Moving to evidence number 3, the elemental side. So this is the point where it all goes from theory to reality, with real evidence and not just symbolism. So at the end of episode 1, when Chloe finds Rachel in the park, Rachel just found out her entire life was basically a lie. Perfect dad, perfect family, all of it was built on a secret. She's having a full breakdown. The person who made her feel most safe in the world, who could do no wrong, who she tried to impress constantly, was her dad. And now she feels like that whole relationship was built on a lie. So she takes the photo that she carries around with her where she felt most safe with him and wants to destroy it. And how does she do that? She burns it. And as she's feeling absolutely wrecked by all of this, she screams. But something wild happens. The wind picks up at the exact moments when she screams. See what I mean? It's almost like the wind moves from her, like it's projecting outward from her body. And there she goes. She does it again. Not once, but twice. So here's my question. If this is just ambient atmosphere, why is the wind not blowing any other time? For example, there are a lot of other emotional moments in this game, and the wind doesn't show up then. The only time the wind appears is specifically in 2 moments where Rachel is at her most emotionally destroyed and screaming her lungs out. And that's a pattern, especially in a game where nothing is by accident. Now, the wind isn't my only evidence. If we move on to the kiss in episode 2, you know, the best part of Before the Storm.
Oh.
Oh my god, she's so awkward and cute. Now, after the Tempest play, if you choose the romantic route, which, how can you not, Chloe and Rachel can kiss. And at that exact moment, when their lips meet, ash starts falling from the sky. Now, you definitely notice this more if you go in for the makeout scene, but you only get this if you have a highly intimate romance with Rachel versus just getting the quick kiss. But it starts falling from the sky at this exact moment with no explanation. And then when they break the kiss, it stops. We don't see it anymore after that. And usually when ash falls from the sky, it means that the fire is getting closer. But yet, it didn't burn down the houses, and it didn't get any closer. It just randomly started falling from the sky, and then it stopped. Almost as if it's an expression from somebody who's controlling the fire subconsciously. Now, think of it this way. You know that feeling you get when you kiss someone that you're really into for the first time, and it feels like fireworks? For Rachel, it wasn't just a metaphor. She's feeling something so intense, so new, and so overwhelming that the fire that's connected to her responds to it. She's not doing it on purpose because she doesn't even know that she's doing it. Now, moving to the scene shortly after that, the dinner table scene. Throughout the whole dinner, Chloe and James are having a battle of wits. The whole time, Chloe tries to take attention off Rachel to calm her down, but it doesn't work and the conversation escalates. As Rachel progressively gets more angry, soon everyone's voices turns to white noise. She's just drowning it out, almost seeing red. And as this is all happening, the candles start to change. At the start of the dinner, the flame is tiny. As Rachel gets more enraged, the flame grows. Slowly at first, then bigger and bigger, right alongside her emotions. Again, the devs do not put these details in there by accident. Everything means something. Candle flames do not just slowly do that the way it was happening. Almost makes me wonder what would have happened if she didn't break that table. Now let's talk about the fire itself. The forest fire is burning for pretty much the middle to the back half of Before the Storm. You get updates about the fire periodically throughout the game. 50% contained, getting closer to the house, ash falling from the sky. It's getting pretty bad. And yet, somehow, Arcadia Bay never actually burns. The fire never makes it into the town. It just keeps burning at the edges. And then, suddenly, Rachel gets stabbed. Now, as you're waiting in the hospital for Rachel to wake up, you can walk down the hall and talk to a various number of people. But the firefighters have the most interesting thing to say.
Just heard the fire went out.
Went out? You mean it's controlled?
No, it's completely out. It extinguished itself.
How could that be?
Hell if I know.
Now, the firefighters are just as stunned as I am because it just extinguished itself randomly. These are emergency responders talking about a forest fire like it's a paranormal event. And maybe that's because it is. Forest fires do not just put themselves out suddenly like that, especially not ones that are only 50% contained and were spreading minutes earlier. The fire went out at the exact second that Rachel was stabbed because the fire was hers. She was just controlling it subconsciously the whole time, and when she went down, the fire went down with her. Now, I've seen a lot of people say over the years, like, oh, you're looking too much into this, or it's just random stuff that they've put in the games. But, like, why are they showing these small details that actually mean a lot more? Why would they waste their time putting it in there if it doesn't mean something? I think they subtly tell you throughout the entirety of this story because that's what Life is Strange does. It invites you to see the smaller details in the game so you can theorize, so you can understand the characters and the story better. And when you start to look at the little details of all of these games, but especially Before the Storm, this story is much bigger than what you think it is. Even the little detail about the firefighters, why would they put that in there if it meant nothing? It's all on purpose. Moving to evidence number 4, the dragon and the music. Now, I want to touch on another thing that I don't see a lot of people bring into conversations when we're talking about Rachel having powers. Her dragon tattoo. Now, she gets this tattoo sometime before the events of Life is Strange 1, but we see her and Chloe at the end of Before the Storm where they have their tattoos together. Now, a dragon symbol means fame, reputation, career, strength, power, and desire. The dragon embodies all of those things, and those things are all Rachel traits. But like, why a dragon specifically? Out of every tattoo she could have gotten, I find it quite strange because dragons breathe fire. They embody an elemental power. They're literally the mythological version of what I'm describing, a creature that controls fire as an extension of itself. Literally in Avatar: The Last Airbender, dragons are described as the first firebenders. This is literally where Aang realizes that firebending is not tied to anger and destruction, but it's tied to energy and breath of life. This is where he truly unlocks his ability to firebend. And I almost wonder if that dragon tattoo is a symbol of Rachel surpassing that she did unlock that ability. She just never knew she had it. But there's also an optional dragon shirt that Chloe can wear in the game, almost as if it's an Easter egg, a little nod to the fact that the dragon is connected to Rachel. Because again, the shirt could have been anything else, but a dragon? It's definitely intentional. Now moving on to the song that plays when Rachel gets stabbed. I could sit here and talk for an hour about how amazing Daughter is and all of their songs and their meanings, but that might be a future video. But this song specifically has a lot of meaning to what's going on and what we're talking about here. Now, the song that plays is Burn It Down, and the lyrics are not so subtle. Now, in the beginning, it says, always was a good kid, always had a way with words. Don't know how I'll ever break this curse. Frequencies I cannot understand. Now the world is only white noise. Can't be bothered with the teachers. Burn it down, and I'll set fire to this whole place. Now, let's break that down, because Rachel is a star student, a good kid, someone who always goes above and beyond. If you see the planner in her room, she always is doing so many things. An assistant to Wells, the lead in the school play, a straight A student, perfect in everyone's eyes. Now, always had a way with words is perfectly encapsulating who Rachel is, because everyone in Life is Strange 1 and in Before the Storm has good things to say about her. She can get out of any situation with her words. She's clever and can fool anyone. Now, the white noise part and being how she can hear frequencies that she can't understand, aka that could be the sound of her own powers activating and her brain not knowing what to do with them, but also symbolizing the white noise over her overwhelming anger at the dinner table. Now, when it says can't be bothered with the teachers, well, I think that has a deeper meaning that I'm not ready to talk about. Now, when it says burn it down 4 times and I'll set fire to this whole place, being Arcadia Bay, the place that trapped her, betrayed her, and destroyed her. This song is literally saying what Rachel would do if she could. Since she feels like she can't escape this place, just burn it down. And maybe she would have if she didn't get stabbed. Now, I know some people could be saying I'm reaching with the dragon tattoo, but why isn't it anything else? Why is it specifically a dragon, and why is it shown more than once? Now, the music is way more intentional because Daughter actually made the music for Before the Storm, but also a lot of other artists have made music specifically for Life is Strange, or even other artists that do music for media in general. Like Arcane, for instance. All of those artists wrote those songs specifically for Arcane. And I think that's part of the reason why people love the music of Life is Strange, is because the music makes the moments hit that much deeper, even if there's no dialogue being spoke at that time. And the lyrics end up cutting so deep. Going to evidence number 5, the franchise pattern. Now, I want to sidestep for a second and talk about how powers work in this franchise. Because when we look at it in its entirety, every single powered character has a trauma that triggers them. Max rewinds for the very first time when she watches Chloe get shot in the bathroom. Chloe is her trigger. In Life is Strange 2, Daniel's telekinesis explodes when a cop kills his dad right in front of him. It was raw, sudden, and devastating trauma. Family is his trigger. Alex got her powers around age 10 when she lost her mother to cancer, and then her dad abandoned them, and then her brother got sent to juvie, which resulted in her being put into foster care, all alone. Once again, family is the trigger. Now, Safi got her power when her dad left and her mother tried to control everything about her. Basically, she didn't want her to be herself. She wanted to crawl out of her skin, which, yet again, family is the trigger. But every single power is based on the individual's arguably worst trauma. So what's Rachel's worst trauma? Finding out her entire childhood was a performance. That the father she idolized, the person who made her feel completely safe, it was all a lie, which in turn made the life that she had been building her entire identity on was also a lie. That Rachel Amber, Blackwell's golden girl, and even Arcadia Bay's biggest celebrity was always destined for something bigger, but it was built on a foundation that didn't exist. So what does that look like when it all crumbles? Devastation. But adding on to this, the franchise has already established that sometimes the powered character is not the one you're controlling. For example, in Life is Strange 2, you play as Sean Diaz, who has 0 powers. But Daniel, our deuteragonist, does have powers. You experience it secondhand through someone who loves him. And then in Before the Storm, you play as Chloe, who has 0 powers. I mean, unless you want to count the power of lesbianism, even though the backtalk is a special skill in itself. But Rachel, the person who Chloe is completely in love with, does have powers, and you're experiencing it secondhand through her eyes. That's the exact same structure as Life is Strange 2, telling a story about someone who we don't play as, and it's on brand for this franchise. Now, I know there's so much controversy of like, oh, Don't Nod has written the games differently and Deck 9 has written the games differently. Although some of their writing styles are different, they do keep one core concept. They put subtle details in there, hidden details, a lot of intentional details, but people miss them. But every single game, no matter who it's written by, has a deeper meaning hidden behind the bigger story that they're telling, or even the characters in the story. There's so much shit that you can find out about NPCs in the world if you actually pay attention to it enough. And both Don't Nod and Deck 9 are masters at telling ambiguous but subtle, detailed stories. Now I'm gonna do a little bit of a sidestep here with my next piece of evidence, but it's also for the people who kind of want to rebuttal what I'm saying. Because in this section, I'm gonna address her pyro abilities, but also addressing the skeptics. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Okay, Loren, if Rachel has fire powers, why can't she just, like, shoot fire? Now, this is where I'm going to use my X-Men knowledge, because I feel like it's a good comparison. So, Pyro, for example, has fire powers, but he can't generate fire from nothing. He needs an accelerant. He needs a source. He can control fire, manipulate fire, direct fire, and even amplify the fire, but he needs it to already exist first. It's actually one of the few things that the movies didn't change from the comics, thankfully. Unfortunately, Rogue is a different story, but I think Rachel is the same, because it's not as easy as just to say that she's a firebender. She's not manifesting flames out of thin air. But if we give her an external fire, say something like a flaming trash can that just got kicked over, she can feel it, connect to it, influence it, and subconsciously feed it with her emotions, and direct it with her wind, and keep it burning for as long as she's alive. And obviously we know that wind feeds fire. Without air, you cannot have fire. Wind is what makes fire spread and grow. And if Rachel can control both, she doesn't need to generate anything. She just needs the right conditions. And Arcadia Bay gave her plenty, but she doesn't even know that she had them. And that's probably the most heartbreaking part. She's walking around a town that failed her and feeling this enormous energy that she can't explain. And maybe that's part of why people are so drawn to her. And maybe these powers could have saved her if she knew she had them. Honestly, I think X-Men and mutants in general is a really great contrast, because there are a lot of mutants in the X-Men universe who didn't know what was wrong with them, or didn't even know that they had powers, or liked to ignore them, and that very much could have happened with Rachel. But we weren't inside her head, so we will never know, sadly. Moving on to evidence number 7, the developer confirmations. Now, people might say that I'm reading too much into things, but that's exactly what this franchise invites you to do. In a previous interview with Game Informer, they had asked the devs directly, straight up, does Rachel Amber have powers? And they didn't say no. They said they wanted to leave it open to interpretation, but they chose not to answer it. And that's not nothing. Sometimes a non-answer is an answer. If Rachel just had no powers and it was all just atmosphere, you could just say that. You could just say, no, it's thematic imagery. You don't dodge the question unless dodging the question is the answer. Now, Michelle Koch, the co-director of Life is Strange 1, has also gone on the record to say that the franchise was inspired by the butterfly effect, the movie, but it also took inspiration by Stephen King's approach of taking a grounded, realistic world and introducing a supernatural element that causes chaos. And Arcadia Bay could be a hub for such supernatural abilities, kind of like how the Nemeton tree was a beacon for supernatural entities to come to Beacon Hills in the Teen Wolf show. If you guys couldn't tell, I kind of love supernatural shit. But it's exactly what's in line with what they told us that they were trying to build from the start. Deck 9 even added on to this world, because they built a girl who was the fire, with a birthday on the cusp of a fire sign and a dragon on her body, even naming an episode called Hell is Empty, and they had her play Prospero, a magician who can control elements. And suddenly, those elements were influenced when she got injured. They could have chose any Shakespeare play to put in Before the Storm, but they chose this one. And none of that is by accident, because nothing in these games ever is. So after everything I've said here, do you guys think that Rachel Amber has powers? For me, I think it's no question that she does. And I've honestly probably thought about Rachel Amber more than some people in my actual life. That might have been a little bit of an overshare. But hey, that's what happens when you hyperfixate on a franchise for over 10 years with so many unanswered questions. Honestly, I just have so much fun theorizing about all of it, and then discussing it with you guys. But in closing, I think that Rachel Amber was fire and wind, and it could segue into another video. Like, was Rachel Amber the storm? You guys will have to stay tuned for that one. And I know some of you might already be commenting, where's my Pricefield breakup video? Long story short, I have rewrote it so many times. It is over 30 minutes. I keep looking at it and then hating it and then wanting to rewrite things, wanting to add things, wanting to take things away. It's low-key kind of the curse of a content creator. I love it at first, and then after I've heard it about 5 times, I'm like, I don't know if I love it anymore. But trust me, the Pricefield breakup video is coming, I promise. Along with possibly a Nathan one. And a Safi one. Anyways, there's a lot of stuff to come, and I've been doing a lot of things behind the scenes to make sure that I am going to start putting these out more regularly, maybe like twice a month. So if you guys love Life is Strange like I do and just want to theorize and talk about it, you guys should definitely follow me. But let me know what you guys think about Rachel Amber and her powers in the comments.